Hello and welcome to today's session as we continue our journey with the project, the DMS project, the Dealership Management Software project. As we get into epics and we're looking specifically into triggers. We're going to create a trigger for our Ford Dodge or Dealership Management Software object, custom object. But before that, we want to review triggers. We want to reacquaint ourselves and be more confident with it, understanding the different ways that they kick in, get a little bit deeper, and then we're going to see how we're going to create that trigger for our DMS. So let's go ahead and share. Quick reminder that there's multiple ways I can create a trigger. Most importantly, in all cases, we want to remember that a trigger usually starts or it kicks off or is fired, as we call it, based on an object. So a trigger is related to an object. So one way to create it is to go to the Developer Console, which is under Setup, Developer Console, go to File, New, Epics Trigger. So I can put a name to my trigger. Usually you want to have a good naming convention because you're going to end up sometimes with 50, 60 different triggers. So you want to identify the name of that's a trigger, the name of the object it's working on, and what it does. So for example, I want to update something on a trigger. So I can type in, let's say trigger, and then the object account. And then what I'm going to do is update something. And then the object, the S object or the Salesforce object that it's working on is on the account object. So let's go ahead and click account, submit. And now it's going to give me the syntax, which is trigger, the name of the trigger, that it's on the account object, and it's going to work before you insert data. And of course, it's just the skeleton, so I can go in and change my trigger. Let's close this out. Another way to create a trigger is setup. And then you go to the objects and fields, object manager, because the trigger is on an object. So I can go to my account object where I want to create my trigger. And then on the account object under the details, you're going to find triggers. So every object under it, you're going to find trigger. That's where you can go in and create your trigger. Let's just clean the house. Make sure we don't have any triggers. Click new. So we can create our first trigger. So let's look at a simple example of a trigger. And of course, we're going to move on to the DMS, but just to kind of review it and see the basics of a trigger. A simple example would be this here, our syntax. And again, all of those examples are on the Kinsey Tech page that you're looking at, that we're watching this video on, where you can go ahead and download the file and you find the trigger and make whatever changes that you need to do. So first is the trigger, that we're creating a trigger. The name of the trigger with the underscore, it's one word, so it's update account trigger. So we're creating a trigger on the account object whenever there's an update. On, so we're identifying what object we're creating on. In this case, it's the account. Then a trigger, because it's an account, it can happen every time data changes or modifies, before it happens or after it happens. Before you change the data, the trigger can work and be fired, or after you change the data, to oversimplify it. So let's take an example of before, an example of after. An example of before is in the case of, suppose I'm working on a point of sale, a cash register where, I'm selling alcohol in a store. If you're under 21, you're not supposed to buy it. A kid that's 16 years old comes in, we swipe the card, it says it's 16 years old. Now, I have two options. Do I want to create a trigger that before I add that record or update that record, or before I do that sale, puts a big red screen and says, you cannot sell to a minor? Or do I want a workflow or process automation that's going to send out an email after 2 weeks and say, oh, by the way, you shouldn't have sold to that person? Absolutely. I want to be notified immediately. I don't want to get fired and the store be fined and everything else. So in this case, a trigger is going to be before insert or before update or before delete. Before you modify the data in that object, you want to put your message out there. So in this case, it's before insert. And again, we can have one condition or more conditions. What object is the account object? But now we can create an alias. A lot of times you're going to reference the objects, the fields multiple times. So instead of typing account.description or account.owner, and every time I'm referring to the field, I'm putting account.object.field, object.field. You create a short name, an abbreviation, what we call an alias. So A is the alias for accounts. Every time I put A dot, it means the object is account, and this is a field in that object. So when I put A dot description, it means that description is a field in the A object, which is the account object. There, I want to put a value. So between bracket means put that value as is. So the description, when I create a new account, before I insert it, is going to put it. So I'm just going to change the message and say, welcome to our company. So if I save this and see that active is already checked, which means this trigger is ready to work. The moment we save it, it's up and running, it's active. So if we save this trigger and we run it, whenever, before I insert, before I save the account value, it's immediately going to update the description and put a value of welcome to our company. So let's go ahead and click save. When would I use something such as this? A lot of times you have a lot of pre-populated values or default values. If someone lives in Los Angeles, I want to by default say that they live in the state of California. And so there's a lot of information that I could put in there. And if there's any tax rates and so anything that's related to Los Angeles or California by default, I can throw in there. If a person works in a certain team, then by default, here's their manager and here's their supervisor and here's how they report and this is the pay period. And so a lot of times, based on one field or one value, you can use a trigger to pre-populate a lot of other values in there. Let's view all. And let's open the Sales Cloud. One thing that I like to do is work on multiple tabs. So one tab is usually for the setup side of the house, and one tab is for the app where you can do your testing. So we don't have to go back and forth so much. So we have the account object. Let's go ahead and create a new account. And we'll call it our test account. Anything that has a red asterisk next to it is required. So I know we have this. I have some SLA information that's also required. And let's save it. Notice we did not enter a description. Saved it. But if I go to details on my trigger work, then you should have a description saying, welcome to our company. So this is a basic introduction to triggers and how a trigger could auto-populate that data for you. And it shows us how we could auto-populate it. And again, it could get a lot more interesting and complex than that. Now let's go to another example of a trigger. There's some conditions where you want to put an error message. We have a function, we're just going to use that function of an error message. For instance, everybody should have their own unique social security number. I should not be able to change your social security number in a bank, for example. You know, it should be your unique one. I could change your balance, I could change something else, but I could not change your social security number. Similarly, in a DMS, a VIN number for a vehicle is national. I mean, nobody could go in and change a VIN number. You might get punished for doing that. So the vehicle ID number is something that's unique to every vehicle. So we want to put a trigger later on in our DMS basically saying, hey, you cannot change the VIN number. So now let's go ahead and see in the account how, for example, the telephone number should not be changed. We can create a trigger to do that. Let's go ahead and delete our original trigger. Objects. It's in the account object. Triggers. We're going to create a new trigger. But let's point out a couple of things. Number one, when you have, you can see the slanted line and slanted line and a star, anything between a slanted line and an asterisk, if you put any kind of words in there and then an asterisk and the slanted line again, anything in the middle is not compiled. The computer does not read it. Epix does not read it, doesn't compile it, doesn't use it as code. This is what we call a comment. So it's a very nice standard. It's an important development standard that you have comments. So when people are reading, people can go in and see. A lot of times you can write a code and come up to 2-3 years and forget what it does. So a comment is what's going to help you to say, oh, I created this on this date and this is what it does. Also, a lot of times you created code and I'm new to the company and I'm reading it. It doesn't make sense to me. So I look at it, it has your name in it and when you created it, so I can go in and ask you. And then the comments should be detailed enough so that people can understand what it does and the different pieces. So you're going to find a lot of that. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to skip through the comments, but I just wanted you to be aware of it. And we're going to say trigger, the name of the trigger. So it has trigger in it. It has account, that it's in the account object. It has the field, which is the phone, and then error, which means an error is going to happen if you try and change the field. What object is it? It's on the account object. When is it going to happen? Before you update. So if you enter a new telephone number, is it going to work? Inserting a new telephone number? No, It's not part of the condition. It only is going to work. It's only going to put an error message if you try and change before you update the data. You change the telephone number, it's going to flag it and say something. What is it going to say? Phone cannot be changed. Phone cannot be changed. So we put an alias of an A. Here's the A.phone. It means the object is A, which is account. Phone is the field, and then this is the function we're going to use, which is add error, and then this is the error message that's going to happen. So let's go ahead and save it, and it's going to be active by default. Let's go ahead and refresh. Let's look at our accounts. And let's pull an account that has a phone number in it, such as this one here. And let's attempt to edit this and change the phone number from 7000 to 7001. Save it. We should have an error message. We hit a snag. There's a problem with the account phone. Okay. What's the message? Phone cannot be changed. Where do we get this message from? From our trigger, which says phone cannot be changed if you try to change on the account object a field called phone. We're going to put that error message. So this is a good example of how you could do some, some data integrity and some checks within your objects as well using a trigger. So now let's look at another example. We said we could use triggers before the data changes. There's about 4, but we're going to essentially 3 important ones, which is update, insert, or delete. When we say data changes, it's whether you're inserting data, which is new records, updating, modifying data that's already in there in the object, or deleting, removing that data. So before you do that, and we gave an example of, the guy drinking alcohol, or the 2 examples that we looked at. Now let's look at an example of after. Sales. What happens is we have a team of 10 people that are doing sales. They speak to 100 people a day. So we created 100 accounts today. But when you create the 100 accounts, let's say we're a real estate agent, we're trying to sell homes, we created 100 leads or accounts today, people that want to buy homes. It takes me a week or 2 to go in and create an opportunity so I can go in and talk to them and sell them the home. So now our vice president of sales and marketing says, no, we need to sell much faster. We need to bring our sales much, much higher. The moment you create the account, we want you to automatically create an opportunity. So if you create 100 accounts today, by default, you created 100 opportunities today as well. We're trying to sell faster. We're not going to be lazy and wait until you manually create an opportunity. So let's see how we can do that. We're going to go in to our account object, triggers, and create new. And we have this example. Again, this is just a comment. Let's see what the comment says. This is the developer's name. This is when they created it. This trigger was created on the account object to automatically create an opportunity. So when the object is created, this opportunity will be created. Now, is this going to happen before or after? It has to happen after you entered all the data. So our condition is not before insert, it's after insert. After you created a new account, then I'm going to create an opportunity. Notice, because we're listing all of the fields, so we have a list opportunity, even though it's in the account object. We're having an alias. So account, anytime I have a dot something, it means it's the account object and then the field in there. Opportunity, we also created an alias for it, OPPTY. So every time I have OPPTY dot a field, it's the opportunity object. I type the whole thing, I'm going to misspell it. So I'm just going to put OPPTY. It means it's the opportunity object. Now notice what we did. We're creating a new opportunity, and then in the new opportunity, so we're creating a new opportunity here. And in the new opportunity, the account ID. So the account ID of the new opportunity we're creating is going to be equal to what? The account ID in the account object. So I create a new opportunity, and the account ID in the new opportunity is going to be whatever the value is in the account ID. So I don't have to type it in. So if I created an account ID called Bashir, I'm going to create a new opportunity and call it Bashir. The account ID is number 1. It's going to be number 1. The account opportunity name is Bashir. So we're going to get the account name. The stage, opportunity stage, notice this is hard-coded. Anything between single quotes, we're going to put the value as is. We have a pick list of the different stages. We're just going to have it default to qualification. And then finally, I have a close date for my opportunity, and we want to close fast. So what are you going to do? We're going to take whatever today's date is, system.today, and add 30 days to it. And again, this is kind of a comment, so we're just going to move it out. So whatever today's date is, add 30 days to it, and that's going to be our close date. So this is a fantastic example of a trigger that it's on the account object. After you created your account, automatically is going to create a new record in a different object, which is your opportunity. It's going to create a new opportunity for you, and it's going to pre-populate. We already have some of that data in our account. It's going to copy it over for you, so you don't have to go in and retype it and maybe misspell it or something, and stuff. So this is a fantastic example of that. You save it, and you go and test it, create an account, boom, automatically creates an opportunity with some of that data already populated for you. Now we're going to look at a final trigger. Again, you can rename those triggers and their aliases and use it in your DMS, but we're going to look at one that is important for our DMS. It's one of our requirements for the project, which is we have the price of the car, which as an example is $36,000. And then we have a field called payment plan. For now, we're just going to use it as a simple number field, but you can make it more sophisticated and do it as a pick list. So we can have 12 months, 1 year, 2 years, up to 5 years or whatever. But for now, we're going to use 12 months. So it's going to be the number 12. So what's your monthly payment? If you have to pay $36,000 over 12 months, we're going to divide 36 by 12, and it's going to be $3,000. So we want to calculate the monthly payment for you. We want to create a trigger that's going to look at your price, which is $36,000, your payment plan, which is 12, divide 36, which is decimal, by 12. And so your monthly payment is going to be $3,000, and then it's going to take that and put it into your custom field. So first field is the price, $36,000, custom field. Payment plan, which is 12. It's going to divide those two in a variable called monthly payment. And then it's going to take that value in the variable monthly payment and put it into your actual field. So let's look at our object just to reacquaint ourselves. Hit forward dodge. New. So if the price is $36,000 and the payment plan is 12, then it should divide 36, which is the price, by 12, which is the payment plan, and put the monthly payment is 3,000. So let's go ahead and create that trigger together. New trigger. Remove everything. Now notice a couple of things. Again, we have a comment. Actually, just 1 second. So now let's look at a trigger and what the trigger does. It's a trigger on, it's called the payment calculation, which is on the object called forward dodge, which is our custom object. Notice now it's going to happen in two situations, before insert or before update. So I can have a trigger work in more than one condition. It's not always after insert or before insert or before insert or before update or before delete. It could have multiple. So before insert means every time you're inserting a new record, a new vehicle information, or if you're changing the information, that trigger is going to work. It's going to recalculate the monthly plan for you. Okay, so it's for dodge custom object, which is our DMS, dealership management software. The alias is M. So every time I have M dot something, it means that's the object, and then that's the value. My calculation, I'm going to put it in a variable. I'm going to contain this divided by this, 36,000 divided by 12, in a temporary place. That temporary place, we call it a variable. So that variable is a decimal. It's called monthly payment. So what is monthly payment equal to, this decimal? It's equal to the price, which is 36,000 in the M object, which is the for dodge object, which is the decimal. So whatever the price is, divided by the payment plan, which is the 12. This is the field in our for dodge object. So whatever the price is, 36,000 divided by the monthly plan, which is 12, is going to go into monthly payment. And then the field, the custom field, which is monthly payment, is going to be equal to monthly payment, which is the variable, which is the 3,000. But I also want to put some words. I want to make it friendly to our salespeople. So this is why we put between braces, between single quotes, your monthly payment is. So we're putting words. And then the plus, which means I'm adding a variable, and then the variable, which is going to be this divided by this, which is 3,000. And this example, again, is in the Kinsey Tech page, reviewing the project. So let's go ahead and hit save. Of course, we need to be in the right object. Since this is not the account object, it should be the ForDodge custom object. So we're going to go to Object Manager, ForDodge object, our triggers for the ForDodge object, create a new trigger. So that's our trigger. Save it. Now let's go ahead and refresh our app. Let's go ahead and create a new one. We're more interested in the price, which is the 36,000. The payment plan, which is 12 months. When I hit save, it should calculate it. So that's exactly what the requirement was. The requirement is the price. Payment plan is 12. Monthly payment is price divided by your payment plan, which is 12. So we have the 36,000, we have the 12, we save it. It should calculate this, and the monthly payment should be 3,000. So let's click save. So this is the customer name we just created. This is 36,000, which is the price. This is the payment plan, and then the trigger did the math and put the verbiage. Your monthly payment is 3,000. And this is the trigger that we're going to use to calculate our monthly payments. And again, we could have different monthly payments and other factors to incorporate in there as well. Thank you very much for your valuable time. We'll catch you in the next session. Thank you for joining us in today's session. We hope that you enjoyed it. And we'd like to invite you to a lot of our free sessions. Simply visit our website at kinseytech.com/events. Thank you again.